Welcome to the Red Rose Film Club, a movie podcast that examines the wide world of cinema through our perpetually lefty, pinko commie, soy boy cuck, Antifa, super soldier filter. But more specifically, we love movies and want to create a podcast that would appeal to the disparate taste of our liberal, leftist, socialist, communist, Marxist, and Leninist friends. The Red Rose Film Club is for leftists of all stripes who don't know what to talk about at parties other than movies and politics. My name is Craig. I work in public education and am passionate about social justice and workers' rights. And I'm with...
Hey, I'm Hal. In 2024, I'm switching it up and taking it back to the basics. I'm a socialist trying to grapple with our world by reflecting on it through art, theory, and the will of the people. So, Craig.
Yeah.
What other pop culture are you getting into these days?
Not as much as I wanted. I got COVID, which should have been like the perfect time to get into pop culture, but as we were discussing, I was in a bit of a just lay and be a piece of shit that like hates everything mode when I got COVID, and so a lot of my time was spent in silence on the couch, just being miserable because not even a movie I could bring myself to. But I did watch a few. One that I liked quite a bit, and two that I was on.
Okay.
I liked Abigail. Have you seen Abigail?
I have not.
All right, Abigail's cool. Can I? I know you don't care about spoilers, but
yeah, I thought it was the second wave of marketing that they did made it explicit what was going on.
They fucked that up.
So I think you can spoil it.
Yeah, it would have been so much more fun having no fucking clue what it is, because the setup is like an elite team of whoever's are gonna kidnap this girl who's like her father is a powerful like crime boss or whatever, and like they set it up like, oh, you fucked up, you got her, like it's just this crime movie where they have to like house this girl, and then if you've seen like the second wave of marketing, she's a fucking vampire. And it's all set in like a single location, like basically this house that they have like safe house in, and then she just starts going ham on them. But it is like a solid like 50 minutes in that the reveal happens, and it doesn't play its hand too much either, unless you've seen the fucking title card where the letters are vampire teeth. Right. It's like, what the shit? But it was fun. It was goofy, and it's by the two fellas that did Ready or Not, if you saw that.
Yeah, and that was a good time. I do love the idea, not that this is what the movie is engaging directly, but kind of what's implied behind it is the idea of Dracula as like Kingpin.
Yeah.
You know, that movie
that is like,
I would for sure see.
I think that I can't remember now what the lore of it was, but I do think it was supposed to be kind of like a Dracula figure. Like I don't think they don't call him that, but I think like the way they're building it up, he's like the ancient, like powerful one or whatever, which is kind of cool.
How about the ones you didn't like so much?
One, I'll do the one that I liked probably the least of the two, which is I still like stuff about it, but I saw Jeff Nichols' The Bike Riders. Have you seen that?
I have not.
It is, everyone is acting within a goddamn inch of their life, and it is so annoying. So I was nice to Austin Butler on our last episode because he fucking crushed it as Fade Routha. I do not like him in this movie. It is all like that kind of like acting school cliche of like white dudes who saw On the Waterfront and were like, you just gotta like scowl and fucking do the like Brando thing.
That very much suggests to me that I would like this movie.
That you would like it? Yeah,
but also I love greasers. Like that, it's very appeals to me.
But there's just not a lot of like.
There's not a lot there.
It's just a lot of like, it's just like, this story amounts to me a who cares of like, we built a club and like we kind of lost control of it, but there's not a lot of like interesting like plot mechanics within that. It's just like kind of a couple tough guys that wanted to build a tough guy club, and then they did, and they were like, well, maybe we shouldn't have, and that's kind of the whole movie without exploring much deeper than that.
Okay, but they're hot though.
They are all hot. Yeah.
What about Jodie Comer's accent?
Weirdest fucking accent I've ever heard. I could not make heads or tails of what was going on with that thing.
Oh, when you visited Chicago recently, you didn't just hear a bunch of people talking that way?
Real weird. It was real weird. It sounded more like Boston, but by way of like, I know, like Savannah, Georgia. It was like really weird.
I heard someone, or maybe it was on Twitter, I can't remember, it was a podcast, whatever, generalized out there, pop culture discussion, someone say that it's almost like she's doing a Chicago Mid-Atlantic, like in the sense that like it does not exist anymore.
It is really weird.
So I don't know, maybe between hot people, weird accents, maybe I gotta check it out.
Oh well, half of the hot people in the movie, they're gonna go ahead and just make their teeth all black. So not the two ones that you're paying the ticket price for, but
everybody else.
Who else was in it? The Walking Dead guy, Norman Reedus. His teeth are all fucked up in it. Michael Shannon's in it. He's actually pretty interesting.
I love Michael Shannon.
His teeth are fucking gross. There was another guy who I was like, oh, look, that guy's in it. And then I was like, oh, his teeth are disgusting. I don't know why everybody had gross teeth in it.
Sometimes people like to do that with bikers.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it was supposed
like
to be
Willem Dafoe and Wild at Heart.
Hell yeah.
The nastiest.
So gross.
Nastiest
That
teeth
whole
inserts.
character is gross. But like the whole, it lacked a lot of like interesting forward momentum for me. It was just like
it's kind of languishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just long. It was like 2.5 hours. And then the third one I saw was Deadpool versus Wolverine, which as a premise is fucking annoying. Do you know the premise of Deadpool versus Wolverine?
I not explicitly. When I was in college, I did read a lot of Marvel comics, like went every Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day it was, to pick up new ones kind of thing. And I know that there's a lot of entanglements between the two of them.
Kind of.
Because of the not dying thing.
Yep. But also, okay, I'm going to spoil it. Can I spoil it? Do you care?
Others, for sure.
I know you don't care about spoilers.
Yeah, I
will
see this movie. I will half watch this movie while falling asleep on the couch on a Saturday afternoon 4 months from now.
Yeah,
probably.
I will say I saw it I do like a mentor thing in town, and I saw it with my mentee who's a 15-year-old boy, and he fucking loved it. So like that was like fun to be like him just sitting there like every time something gross happened. Okay, so the thing that is annoying as shit about this movie is it's just a vehicle to like for cameos and for like fan service, because it doesn't fucking matter what the stupid plot is, but like Deadpool and Wolverine get banished to the realm of whatever the fuck it is, some weird realm where they get sent to. And what the realm is the realm of the lost 20th Century Fox properties since the merger with Disney.
Okay.
So, I'm going to spoil this for anybody that like loves a good cameo. So like they bring back a bunch of good and not great, not well fondly remembered characters. So Wesley Snipes is in it as Blade. The little girl that was in the fucking Wolverine, I only saw that one once, but the one that was like he's out in the woods and
Logan,
yeah.
Yeah, I know Juggernaut was in it. I saw that on
Juggernaut, but then Elektra, which was like, okay, it's Jennifer Garner and she's cool in it, but like that was not a movie that anyone was like clamoring for. And then the only one which I kind of respected, but I respected it more because of the commitment and the performance, was Gambit, which was like, they were trying to make that movie forever with Channing Tatum. So,
they have Channing Tatum.
So Channing Tatum is in it, but which is this is all just annoying to me in general, because it's just like a fucking, hey, you remember, you like that. But Channing Tatum commits to a terrible Cajun accent the entire time and sounds like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. Like intentionally, and it's so fucking funny. It's just like that's the thing that made me
amazing.
Yeah, that's the part that made me laugh throughout. It's just like, hey, no man,
I love him so much.
Yeah,
and actually, we are around the 10-year anniversary of the Sony leaks, the email leaks, and one of my favorite things, of course, that came from that. And if you're a close friend that we've had digital communications for a long time, you've definitely been sent this by me, a screenshot of his email that is just like ha 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 ha, like it just
awesome.
In response to 21 Jump Street doing really well.
Oh, who did he send it to?
I believe to Amy Pascal, but it was just like and like the production team and stuff, because people didn't think it was going to do well.
Yeah.
So funny. It's just, he just said a page of all capital, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a man that I understand.
Yeah, and he's great. Like he is to me the shining spot in it, because like
that's delightful.
Because the character is silly. Like I know that's a beloved character or whatever, but like he throws cards and shit. It's a silly character, but he really commits to having this indecipherable Cajun accent.
And he's a good actor.
Yeah, he's funny. And honestly, what it made me think was like, this is what I wish this is the kind of like self-aware that I wish the Deadpool movies were. Do you know what I mean? Like, self-aware enough to know that your accent is stupid, but you're going to commit to it, but not.
Well, because it's still earnest, right?
Yeah,
like,
but not wink at it the whole fucking time.
Committing to the bit, actually fully committing to the bit instead of being like, do you see it? Do you see the bit
Shit
we're
drives
doing
me
here?
crazy. But yeah, and the guy from Succession was the villain, which was kind of fun. But he didn't have any fun like villainy stuff. Matthew McFadden.
Oh, okay. I was like, Jeremy Strong.
I wanted it. Like,
it would be really surprised if he agreed to do that, but Matthew McFadden.
Never.
Okay.
It's beneath me.
Yes.
Which is like kind of like you get to see Matthew McFadden like deliver some funny lines, but he doesn't like. I don't know if in the comics this guy was somebody, but he never turns into anything cool or fun. Like it's just he's like a villain businessman is like his role. But
classic.
But yeah, what about you? What you been watching?
The upper class is the villain, right? I have a couple of things listed here. First, I'm gonna say this one I listed second first because I think it's a good opportunity to talk about fan service and it being effective.
Okay, cool.
In my onion. So as leading to this, I will say there are many things that I can be, in fact, maybe too critical about. The Alien series is not one of them. I love it deeply. It's like one of the few media properties that as an adult I would say have some degree of like fandom. Like I'm not really a fandom person.
Yeah.
And I don't really engage in like a community. I do not engage in a community in that sense of fandom. But like I love all of the movies, including Alien versus Predator, much maligned.
I don't think I've ever seen any of the Versus ones.
So Alien versus Predator Requiem, which is the second one, is not. I still think it's like a fun time, but it's not. Fun is not. It's fine enough if you're just like, yes, I'm doing a watch through and I want to watch all of them. If you enjoy on a just the xenomorphs and the predators, it's going to be fine. But it's not a good movie on any level. Alien versus Predator is legitimately fun. I think it has a great cast.
That's the first one.
Yes, and they go to an ice pyramid underground in Antarctica, and it is just full of like Rube Goldbergian traps that like the xenomorphs are hiding within, and then like the humans have to collaborate with the predators in order to defeat the xenomorphs. And in this section of the universe, the xenomorphs are developed as the ultimate prey and are part of a adolescent aging ritual for the predators, so they have to defeat and kill a xenomorph. So
they have a history.
Yes,
like they're in lore. The two are like the Capulets and
not quite. It's more like they make them for the purposes of a challenge. So it would be like
gotcha. But none of this is like the lore is not tied into the actual like alien lore, is it?
Well, it's kind of like how the like Star Wars extended universe, you know, people could just debate forever about all these various branches. So it does not come to bear on the rest of the film's canon, right? But it is its own thing. And then there are graphic novels, comic books, novelizations that go down the Alien versus Predator route.
That's cool.
I love all of the movies. I have come to my house a variety of different xenomorphs in my home.
I have a lot of goofy shit in this room, and I'm looking around
trying to see if you have any.
I don't know if I do.
My personal favorite is after I went to go see the movie that I'm about to discuss, a friend gave me the popcorn bucket because they sold out the person immediately in front of me on opening night.
Oh no!
And it currently has a ZZ Plant in it. And
is it a face hugger?
Yes, it's a face hugger, and the face hugger's fingers are articulated, so they like grip the edge of the plant. It's really fucking cool. And then I have a Xenopanther, which is one of my favorite. I love one of my favorite things about the xenomorph as a villain, or just as a creature, is that they take on, their DNA intermingles with their host. So there's a whole series of like novelizations, books, extended universe stuff that imagines other hosts, like the dog in Alien 3.
Which I left off some stuff, but I did rewatch Alien 3 while I was sick.
Nice.
It's fun.
I like it.
Well, I had recently mentioned that I saw it, and I was like, yeah, it's a whatever, but I definitely like it more this time.
Yeah, I think it's just if you're ever comparing something against Ridley Scott's the greatest sci-fi horror movie ever fucking made,
Sure.
Alien 1979, or Jimmy Cameron's Aliens 1986, I think, one of the greatest sci-fi action movies ever made. Of course, it's not going to be
but I will say
like a shining star.
For a third
you know what
one,
I mean?
it still has like a lot of restraint. You would think that like by the
yeah.
third one they'd be like, all right, fuck it, alien gut action the entire time. But no,
it's quite good, and I think the morality play is very interesting with the prisoners and what Charles Dance. I quite like it. I have always enjoyed it and have always been. I'm glad people are turning around on it relatively
and a
speaking.
Great Charles Dance death scene.
Yeah,
because it's the scene where he finally admits why he's on the prison,
planet,
and then you're like, oh, they're gonna let this love affair blossom now, and then dead.
Nope. And it's visually very distinctive from
it looks Finchery.
Yes, from the other movies, which I like. But I'm a really big fan. I've read several novelizations.
Hell yeah.
So when they announced that, now we get to it, Alien Romulus is coming out, I was like, obviously I'm there. And I think one of the great things about the Alien series as a whole is that it does contain such a range of interpretations. So there is the pure sci-fi horror, there is the sci-fi action with obviously some horror elements, but they're shooting big guns. It's very action driven, and then you've got like just goofy early 2000s. That's what AVP is bringing, is just like schlocky. It honestly in some ways reminds me of Final Destination.
Okay, cool.
Because of that.
The new one or
no
AVP?
The AVP. Okay. I'm just saying across the series as a whole, there are a lot of different expressions of the themes of Alien, and playing in the sandbox of the character, or what the creature's capacities are. So I am going in I don't have super high expectations in terms of like, this has to have those like really strong Freudian elements of original Alien for me to connect to it, or like this has to have amazing action set pieces like Aliens for me to want to watch this. Honestly, if you're fucking around with the Xenomorph, I'm gonna be there. It's the coolest monster ever created, in my opinion. So it was fun.
Cool.
It was pretty fun.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
That guy is fun. That Fede Alvarez.
Fede Alvarez.
I haven't seen much. Well, I didn't like Don't Breathe that much, but I really liked his Evil Dead remake.
His Evil Dead
disgusting
remake.
And gross and fun.
There are some things about Alien Romulus where it's like, okay, I see you've got your same like box of crayons and you're coloring with the same colors. Like there's a scene where they are walking very slowly and can't speak and have to restrict their breathing to like try and get through a room, and it's like an extended episode of how they are interacting with a group of face huggers basically. And it's like, yes, obviously like you like to play with sound and restriction of movement. It was very Don't Breathe, but it's really fun. I'm always looking for like, are you doing something interesting with the life cycle of the xenomorph? The fact that it has to lay itself in the host, and then we've got obviously the chest bursting, and then the intermingling of the DNA. I think he does a few fun things there. It does have, I would say, some of the themes of gender. They're definitely not distilled and precise in the way that maybe some of the earlier films are, but there is fan service. At some point someone yells, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Nice.
And you know what? I was in a full theater in Dolby. People fucking cheered. Like,
and I feel like sometimes it's okay if like it's the shit that like is just so winking, and like if you want to throw a line in, that type of fan service never really bothers me, but it's the goddamn Marvel of it all where like everything's like wink wink.
There is no and there is like genuine emotion in this movie. I really like what they do with the primary synthetic or artificial person in the film.
Who is it played by?
He's played by a guy named I think his name is Daniel Johnson. Oh fuck, his name might be David Johnson, excuse me. And he is he is British, and the dominant thing that he's been in America is Industry, the HBO show, which I only know because Mike watches it, because he watches any show about financial markets and people being bitchy to each other. Also including Secession and
Does
Billions.
He like it? Okay.
Yes, he does. I think this season that's currently coming out, he's not loving as much, but it's yes, David Johnson he's from that, and he crushes it. His performance is very strong and nuanced, and carries a lot of emotion on its back. But I think there's also just some level the issue with all of like the winking and overly meta bullshit is that when that's the only thing available. And as we're going to talk about today, we watch movies that are not that. And so for my one zone, for my one little corner of the fandom, yes, give me some fucking xenomorphs and zero gravity spinning around. Acid blood flies everywhere. Like, yeah, that's what I want.
That sounds fun.
So, and then immediately after that, I rewatched Alien Covenant because I hadn't seen, that's the one in the series I've seen the least. I've still seen it like 5 or 6 times, but I hadn't seen it in a couple of years.
The one I think I like the least and also remember the least.
Yeah, I think that...
So I should rewatch it too because I want to...
It holds up very well.
Does it? Okay.
But it's on the far opposite end of like if like AVP is the far end of like the most fun, splashy, nonsense kind of goofiness.
That one's more
Alien
grim
Covenant is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. I do think Fassbender's performance in it is riveting.
Yeah, he's cool.
And I think for me the reason why I don't rewatch it as frequently is because Prometheus is amazing. I think that I loved Prometheus, I really like it.
And that was the one that everyone was like, this shit sucks.
No,
and
I fucking loved it.
Like opening night, and then we're like, well, everyone's gonna love this, and then everyone did not love it.
Yeah,
but I thought it was cool as shit.
I think it's an amazing exploration of the idea of like, what if God is actually evil?
Yeah.
And which totally fits with the overall badass vibes of the Aliens universe,
I will
right?
say, while I was sick, I tried to rewatch Prometheus. And there's that like little prologue at the beginning where you see the like Promethean
the engineer.
Man. Yeah. I never saw a human character before I fell asleep. It's literally like a 2-minute sequence with that guy at the beginning, and I was like asleep, and then woke up, credits rolling. Never saw a different character other than that guy.
It's part of why I like it so much is that I do think it has one of the best scenes that most clearly is a wash in those kind of like Freudian and like the feminine monstrous elements, like the her having to give herself an abortion in a
machine,
pod.
Yeah, that thing was woo, brutal.
Like all time great.
I remember there being a
sci-fi
pretty
horror set
harrowing
piece
scene where like somebody gets set on fire right outside the yeah, that was pretty fucked up.
The classic Alien setup of, do we let them back in the ship?
And Fassbender's good in that one too.
Yeah, he's great. I just, so much Covenant rests on his performance in a way that Prometheus, I mean, he's good in it and he is essential. You could not remove David. You could not remove.
He's a table setter, a plot mover in that.
Yes,
one.
whereas like he is the horse. If the wagon is the plot.
Can I also say in Alien 3, a thing that I forgot that happens that's real disgusting that I really liked is when she like digs Lance Henriksen out of the trash pile to like try to get the information on him, and like his face, like literally all she gets is one arm, a shoulder, and a head, and like it's all torn up. And then like I couldn't stop watching it because it was so gross, but like they're like milky blood or whatever, while he's like trying to like resetting, his like milky eye is like protruding, and every time it blinks it's just like it's so disgusting, and I couldn't stop watching it.
I will say in Alien Romulus, again, it's just like there are all throughout it are things that it's like Fede Alvarez was like, yes, I will take that from Aliens, and yes, I will take that from Alien 3, and yes, I will take that from Alien Resurrection. But there is like a pretty nasty. I will say that is probably the worst part of the movie. Not the nastiness, that's delightful, but then when it's like flipped over and it's revealed, they used AI to transplant Rook on a science officer from
from an earlier one.
Yes.
Damn, that's
onto his face. And I don't think it actively looks horrible, but obviously the just like ethics of
the use of it is a bummer.
Of it is of concern, and I think other people maybe don't have the same feelings as me about it not looking good. So but yes, I do recommend Alien Romulus if on any level you have enjoyed any Alien movie. I think it's a fun time.
Hell yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up here briefly is that I rewatched Pulp Fiction for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. That's probably.
Awesome. I haven't seen it probably that long either. I should do the same.
Yeah, it's I watched it because it's the 30th anniversary.
Oh shit.
Of it.
Yeah.
I know.
94, yeah.
Of it coming out, and it's on Prime. And so I just wanted to revisit it. Also, in the last 10 years, I mean, I watched it so many times in like the key ages of between like 14 and 20. And then I cooled on it a bit. But in the last 10 years, especially, I have watched a lot more exploitation film. I just have a lot more context for what he's drawing on, and so watching it at age 33 versus age 15, it's like I'm getting something basically entirely different out of it, where maybe some of like the film trickery of like, oh, the things are out of order and trying to reconstruct what order things happen in, and that was kind of the fun of watching it as, you know, a 16-year-old.
Once you've seen it a bunch of times, like there's no pieces left to put together, you know, the like story or whatever, so yeah, I do feel like you can dive into more of the nuance of it. Yeah, and just kind of reflecting on like how is this so much more, he borrows obviously so much and re-scrambles it in a way that is more effective in terms of narrative power and like momentum than 90% of the things that he's borrowing from. Now again, not all of them. He loves like Wild Bunch. I'm not saying that Tarantino made a better movie than Sam Peckinpah, but a lot of the like more explicitly pulpy exploitation stuff he's borrowing from, he made something much more distilled and intentionally funny, and it's just kind of a feat to dip back into. And all the performances are so fucking good in that movie. Like, it's every time I'm like, okay, this guy's the best, no, this one's the best, no, this one's the best, and they're all great. And that's another one that has a good bunch of great lines that I've just incorporated into, not even my favorite one that doesn't make any sense, but I just like go, you know, the greenhouse on the first floor, he fell through that. I don't know why that one sticks with me so much, but I love that one. Do you have a favorite like storyline? Subplot, or storyline? Probably the Bruce Willis one. I just like, that was the one I loved when I was a kid. Like, that was kind of my introduction to Bruce Willis. I love whatever Samuel L. Jackson is doing throughout is also fun. At any time. He fully showed up. I love the Mia storyline. I mean, I love Uma Thurman, of course, and then like the kitsch of Jack Rabbit Slims. Jack Rabbit Slims that they go to. I love that John Travolta is dancing in the scene, since that is obviously so much the basis of his fame early on, especially. And that it like has this weird overarching fucked up tension of like, is she trying to fuck him? Yeah. But while also being very, not pure, but it's like the kitsch, like kind of sucks. Yeah. Away the darkness. You know. And yeah, because there is I enjoy like that relationship. Because do we ever even see Marcellus and her together at any point? But there is like that kind of like menacing specter of whatever. Yeah, he threw the guy the story that he fell through that. But yeah, hell yeah. Oh fuck, I was gonna say something about something else in that. Oh, my favorite Kathy Griffin performance. That was her first movie role. She's the one that when Bruce Willis hits Marcellus with his car, she's the one that goes, "That guy took your wallet." Oh my god. Yeah. It's like one scene, but one line, but yeah. No, true. But every time I was like, hey, good for her. Kathy Griffin. Good for her. Is it Griffin or Griffith? Why can't I remember? Griffin. Okay.
Yeah. My Life on the D List was a central. It held strong in my childhood. My mom and I would watch all of it, and it's absolutely the reason that when I curse, I say Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, is because of her.
I never watched it, but like that show kind of gave her a bit of a like career revival, right?
Oh, for
like,
sure.
That was,
But my favorite part about it is, well, one, I just loved the VH1 celeb reality. I mean, we'll never have that again. That like moment of, I'm gonna use the word authenticity. That's kind of a thorny phrase, but just genuinely like people not fully understanding yet the risks of doing that, and also that the risks were lower because it wasn't so pervasive. It wasn't like all encompassing with social media and everyone has a camera in your face 100% of the time. You still had a little bit of control over it, and also the audience wasn't as large, so you know the dissemination of
and
what
people
you're
didn't know how to like perform for a
Yeah,
reality
the
show
archetypes
yet. Like,
hadn't-
now if they
hadn't
made it, I'd be
emerged.
like, all right, shut the fuck up. You're stop
yeah
it. You're trying-
she was it was her dating Steve Wozniak.
I didn't even
her-
know about that.
Oh,
That's,
yes.
that's for real.
Yes, for real.
okay.
She dated Steve Woz for a long time.
Good for her. And him, I guess. I don't know.
Also, my favorite one of my favorite parts about the show, aside from that kind of inside look at the audition process and fame and the disappointment, which of course, as a long-term celebrity gossip monger, I always loved, is her relationship with her mother. Like, her mom is just like a dominant character the whole time. This like small Catholic
sweet.
woman who cannot fully understand why her daughter wants to be famous or what's going on, but is down for the ride. So yes, I love My Life on the D List. Two more things. One is just a very brief mention. Do you know who Zach Fox is?
I feel like I've heard that name, but then also I think I might be thinking of comedian Kirk Fox.
Okay.
So tell me who Zach Fox is.
So
Maybe,
Zach Fox is a comedian and music maker, rapper, performer, etc. He, in terms of his acting, the thing that he is probably most famous for, just generally, is he's in Abbott Elementary as the boyfriend.
Not the young teacher kid.
Correct.
Okay.
He is not a white man.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. I'm the one I'm thinking of is a young black guy that wasn't he the
That's everybody. The guy from
Chris.
Everybody Hates
That's
Chris. Not him.
Okay,
He's in a much smaller role.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's like an alt comedian kind of guy, but he was the main character's boyfriend for at least part of. I have not seen a lot of at least the first season, and I believe he's in some more of it. But
I've only seen a couple episodes here and there.
So he's there, but I know him from being a comedian in general online presence. He has a very funny song about having depression that I would encourage everyone to listen to.
I'm looking up his credits, and I gotta check this guy out because he's worked with Kenny Beats, who I love, and he directed the Dragon Ball Durag music video for Thundercat.
Yes. Yeah. He is very much. Also, I will say he stars in one of the shorts, the comedic shorts that it will be playing at the Tallahassee Film Festival called Deep-ish, I think.
Okay.
And he's the lead in it. He's very funny. I like him a lot. I'm definitely going to, when we get off the air, play this like joke rap song that he made and performed again about having depression. It's very funny.
It's like funny, as funny as Lil Dicky.
Funnier for sure, funnier than Little Dicky.
That
And I
was
say that as
sarcasm, by
someone.
the way.
I say that as someone who has watched all of Dave. So.
Okay, Dave is good though.
Yeah, Dave is good.
Like I can't stand Lil Dicky's
music
in general.
But
Dave is good. Yeah.
The show is good. But he has been DJing for Zach Fox has been DJing for some amount of time. He's gotten more popular for his DJing in the last several months, and he has done a couple of sets that have gotten really publicized. So before I wrote this, or since I wrote this, he has actually done one at the Boiler Room, a set of the Boiler Room in New York that is on YouTube. That's good. But the one I like the most is he has a DJ set for Black House Radio, which is a YouTube channel that, as the name would suggest, focuses on house music that's made by Black people. And he it's a great set, and he combines like house music, R&B, hip hop. He's like approximately our same age, so a lot of his like references are drawing on things that you know when we were in high school. this set mixes like that Tev Campbell song from the Goofy movie in it. There's gospel in it. Like he just is doing funky fun stuff. And I've been listening to it at work. It's like a little over an hour. So you
don't confuse I got
that.
when you said the Black House radio channel, because I was like, I know who that is. Do you listen to Benny the Butcher?
No,
he's a rapper that I really like.
Yeah.
But he just put out an album with a collective that call themselves the Black Soprano Family.
Whoa, sick.
And I was like, I know Black House Radio. And then when you're like, they do house music, I was like, hold on. This cannot be the same group of people doing house music.
They do you know what my analog radio is? Mm-mm. It's like a YouTube channel that has people come in and DJ. And they just DJ like vinyl DJ around some specific theme. So I listen to that a lot at work because a lot of the music that I most want to listen to, I cannot listen to at work due to its content. So I will play these videos and it'll be like Italo disco from the 1970s or like Brazilian funk from the 60s. That's or cool. Some theme like that, and they just like DJ for an hour or whatever. And this is the Black House Radio is very similar to that, but it's not necessarily on vinyl. It's people mixing digitally with an emphasis on house music. So it's cool, yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, which I watched last night because I got it in the mail this week from my pre-order at our housewarming party last night. As it was winding down, we watched The People's Joker.
I'm excited to hear you talk about this.
Directed, written, starred by Vera Drew. Came out in 2022, but only is getting released like for people to buy it in 2024.
What is it? Because I've seen people share images, and every time I'm like, that looks pretty fun, but I got no fucking clue what this is about.
It is a DC parody film.
Okay.
Written, directed, starring a trans woman who she calls herself in the movie that she is Joker the Harlequin.
Okay. So
and
like
she
a mashup?
Yes.
Okay.
And she is in the film, like her character in the film, Joker the Harlequin, is a stand-up comedian who is like interacting with other, like the Penguin and other characters from DC while navigating the troubles of trying to become famous and basically get on SNL.
Okay.
There has a different name in the film, but a lot of it is live action with like computer generated backgrounds.
Okay.
And then some of it is animated.
Ooh.
In like a
full animation or like person in an animated.
No, like full animated, like scenes of full animation.
Okay,
cool. But in kind of a like the DC shows if done by people that worked for Adult Swim.
Gotcha.
If you film it, like messier, right? It's a little blurry around the edges, but
that sounds cool as hell.
Yeah, and it's like a tight 90. It is.
Is it twisted?
It's sick and it's twisted.
About the Joker, so I imagine it's twisted.
It's sick and it's twisted. It's about her gender journey, her relationship to her mom, her relationship to comedy, and trying to be a comedian while undergoing transition.
That sounds interesting shit. I gotta watch
There's a T for T relationship in it. Like it is truly everything I had seen online for the last 2 years where I'm like, I gotta see this movie. Absolutely accurate in terms of the like raw talent and sick and twisty spirit.
Hell yeah. Has Vera Drew done other shit that I might recognize?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I mean, I say this with every name because I'm just a dumb guy who can't remember anything. But anytime somebody says a name, I'm like, that sounds like a name I could have heard of before. And when you said Vera Drew, I thought maybe. But maybe it's just because I've seen people sharing The People's Joker and said that's a name.
Yeah, and again, she like this movie was finished in 2022 and then like didn't have a distributor and they have just been touring it around. There were screenings of it in Jacksonville and Gainesville, but only like one-offs that did not time well very early this year, and then they dropped the pre-order for it like late spring, early summer. So I think it's had a long a long life digitally, because it's taken a while.
Can you rent it on demand? Is it available that way?
I don't know. I think so. I think it probably
one that
is.
My wife and I would both quite like.
Yeah, it's quite good. Also, apparently, she was an editor for on Cinema, Comedy Bang Bang, and
oh, nice.
Who is America? So she has a lot of entanglements with the comedy world.
Oh my God, you said this and it reminded me of a thing that I was watching with like, I mean, it's hard, I feel like, to be shocked by anything, like by shitheads doing shitty things. But this sent me on a Tim Heidecker rabbit hole of rewatching his Club Random parodies. Have you seen those?
I have not.
Oh my fucking... Do you know Club Random? Bill Maher's terrible thing? Mm-hmm. He does a parody of it where he's not doing a Bill Maher... Have you seen him do the Joe Rogan one?
Yes.
It's that, but with Bill Maher. So like... being an asshole, being condescending to everyone, like immediately being like someone like, I like this, be like, you fucking do? What the fuck is up with that? Like clanking drinks the entire time people are watching, are talking. It's so fucking good. But the reason I went back on the Tim Heidecker making fun of Bill Maher rabbit hole is because Bill Maher did a thing that, like, I think legit the authorities need to step in, where he did an episode of Club. He did an episode of Club Random where it was called Bill Talks to Kids. First off, he walks in. The introduction is he walks in. There's two little girls, 10 years old. He's carrying a handle of vodka and sets it down. And he's like, all right. And the whole thing, he's just like complaining about the young generation, the kids that don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And then being fucking gross. Like he's like, so what do you watch on TV? And the girl's like, I like Modern Family with Sofia Vergara. And he's like, oh, Sofia Viagra, she's hot. This is a 10-year-old girl that he's talking to. And then there's like... And then he's just fucking shoehorning his terrible politics into it, where he's like it's like several different kids, like a few interviews like cut together, and then there's one where the girl is like 8 maybe, and the boy is older. He's like 15 or 16, and so Bill Maher starts by going something like, "So when did you guys start transitioning your gender identity?" And they're like, What? And he's like, because all you kids nowadays are just, you can't decide I'm this or I'm that. And to be fair, the best moment in the whole thing is the little girl goes, I don't know if she has an accent or a little lisp, but it is fucking adorable. She goes, I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. And it's really funny.
Someone should just play that on a loop. Like
every time he says that.
The
I have no idea what you're talking about,
protests,
sir. The what?
Like noise pollution protests, like when they would do when folks do inside-outside organizing, where they might like project demands really loud at like a prison, for example, from the outside. It's like, just do that to him 100% of the time. I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. And he also, like, one of his most recent episodes of Club Random, he interviewed the Haktua girl.
No.
Like, what the fuck is he even doing? Like, she looks better in that interview than he does, clearly. I mean, let her ride it for all it's worth, honestly. But, like, why? What are you doing? But yeah, and then like getting drunk with kids and being like, "Oh, Sofia Vergara's hot," to like
and then
a 10-year-old.
acting like leftists are the like morally devoid ones.
Yeah, he is like needs to be stopped. Blah. It's crazy. Anyways, well, are we ready to move on to our current events?
Yeah, you want to
go first?
Yeah,
sure thing. I want to talk about something more specific, but it stemmed from Trump and Elon's ridiculous Twitter interview thing, which. Those images of them were just so funny. It was like I only saw an image of Trump, but like just in a like could not be more like Charles Foster Kane, just like in a huge empty gaudy room yelling at a phone on the table. Like it was really funny. But so if you are unfamiliar, Trump and Elon had this disastrous exclusive interview a couple weeks ago where they both seemed like they were being held hostage by one another. So I don't even know who the fuck this was for. But among a lot of dumb things that were said, one of their more moronic bone motes might actually get them in trouble. Which was the conversation turned to Elon's great 4D business acumen, how he's great at everything. And Trump praised Elon's ability at cutting cost and then called Trump several times, he's a great cutter. But he said the stupidest thing he could have possibly said in this context of this interview, which was he said, I look at what you do. You walk in, you say, you want to quit? they go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone. And you can't fucking do that because federal law prohibits employers from threatening termination of employees that going on strike. And just because you didn't mention the company by name doesn't make it less illegal, you fucking moron. He's literally doing like, let's fire the rabble rousers at Eslate, huh? And then you can't get mad at me if I didn't actually say it. And Elon has already obviously like run afoul of this a bunch of times, and like he did like what the best thing he could have done in that, which was not say a fucking word. However, the United Auto Workers this last week filed a suit with the NLRB for intimidating workers, and the president, Sean Fain, who seems like a cool dude, he was speaking at the DNC this week as well. His remarks on it were, when we say Donald Trump is a scab, this is what we mean. When we say Trump stands against everything our union stands for, this is what we mean. Donald Trump will always side against workers standing up for themselves, and he will always side with billionaires like Elon Musk, who is contributing $45 million a month to a super PAC to get him elected. Both Trump and Musk want working class people to sit down and shut up, and they laugh about it openly. It's disgusting, illegal, and totally predictable from these two clowns. Now, I don't think that, like, this will ultimately, like, you know, it's not going to fucking toast either one of them, but I do think that that's the dumbest shit you could have done when, like, the election got so much more close now, and you are fighting in, like, Michigan, these battleground states with, like, working class people who, like, will swallow a lot of dumb shit, but like not this kind of dumb shit. So I don't know. On the one hand, like, it's scary as shit that these two morons are just like openly giggling about it, but at the same time, like, it does seem like another misstep in this stupid campaign that like might have actual consequences for the election, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that Donald Trump does not retain any relevant information that involves external parties while speaking ever. Yeah. Like laws, good sense, morality, taste, policies, past court cases, etc. He's just like, his brain is free floating in the vacuum of his own bullshit.
And he is on like, he's on another level of weird recently. Like, honestly, since the shooting, like he's gotten...
He is definitely trauma brain.
Yeah,
like,
he's having like a,
without a doubt,
like eat, pray, love moment, like through this entire campaign of like trying to find himself, but in the most Trumpy way ever, of like just continuously saying even more unhinged shit. But what about you? What's got you celebrating or in despair?
So I will say this is a little bit of celebration in the context of despair.
All right.
So
Our
I wanted,
favorite
kind. I wanted to cover something that is more local. Again, it's been a minute since I've done that, so we'll talk a little bit about the Gainesville divestment campaign. So in early August, Alachua County, Florida, the county where the city of Gainesville is located, but the city government of Alachua, the county government of Alachua, I don't know what I'm saying, divested from all corporations. So that's like their, oh God, I lost the word. It starts with a P. Pension. Their pension funds, as well as like their, some like general investments that they had. Sorry, I was like, pensions. So they divested from all corporations. This was a strategic decision made in order, the focusing on all corporations, that is a strategic decision made to dodge the anti-BDS laws that we have in Florida. So BDS being boycott, divest, sanction.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm about to talk about the laws that are relevant. So basically, effective July 1st, 2023, DeSantis' administration, he signed a law and it went into effect that prohibited use of environmental, social, and governance, which are called ESG factors, in state and local investment decisions and the government contracting process. So under this policy, all decisions about investments and government contracting are supposed to be made exclusively using pecuniary justifications, basically the predicted investment yields. Will this make us more money or less money? And not in any way considering any other factors. Yeah. So this is very obviously there are other things that it has negative consequences for, but it's definitely intended to target the BDS movement, which is really the dominant form that the anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian movement has taken in the United States in the last 20 years, is focusing on boycotts, divestment, sanctions. So this bill that came to effect last summer, in combination with some other bills, creates a really tough legal environment, because since March 2016, municipalities in Florida have also been explicitly banned. So this was passed and signed by under Rick Scott, explicitly banned municipalities from pursuing state contracts with and state investment in companies that boycott Israel, or persons or entities doing business in Israel or territories it occupies. So it's a boycott the boycotter law, that in combination with the 2023 anti-ESG bill made it such that the only path forward is, if you are interested in divestment, the only path forward is to put the kibosh on all corporate investments, because you can't divest on the basis of a company supporting Israel from the 2023 law, and you also can't make decisions to invest on the basis of that company boycotting Israel, right? So we're kind of stuck between extremely, like, the rock and a hard place, magnified. So the decision was made by movement leaders and the people to cast a very broad net, all corporations, to ensure that intended targets were included in the whole, right? If we just say all corporations, we're going to get the ones that are based in Israel or are supporting Israel, or make money on the backs of Israeli genocidal violence, right? So, according to the Gainesville Iguana, the primary targets for investment included Caterpillar, Lockheed Martin, L3Harris, and RTX. Activists strive to motivate the city of Gainesville to follow suit, so to do the same thing that the county did, which is no small feat, because as of September 2023, Gainesville's pension plan held 1,355 shares of Caterpillar, specifically, currently valued at like almost $500,000. So if you're not familiar, the reason why Caterpillar in particular is being targeted, because like Lockheed Martin, L3Harris, we might, like, they're making munitions, right? Yeah. Like they're generating weapons. Caterpillar is being targeted because they make construction machinery that's being used to either build illegal settlements or to raise existing cities, or, settlements of Palestinian people. But again, it constitutes like a pretty large portion of Gainesville's pension plan currently, those shares in Caterpillar. So activists are trying to, again, take what was done on the county level, mirror it at the city level. However, in a meeting about 10 days ago, on August 15th, the mayor of Gainesville noted that them even discussing the intentions of indirect divestment in a public meeting may alone be disqualifying, right? Like, if they were to divest and then it gets pushed through a court case, all these meeting notes of them talking, these public meeting notes of them talking about, well, yeah, we're targeting, it's all corporations, but the reason we're doing this is because of XYZ, that alone may be disqualifying. I will say their mayor is a Democrat who has seemingly some connections to the White House. Like, there's pictures of him like posing with Biden, and there was like some news reporting that he had conversations with White House advisors about some policy concerns. So it's really not good that this is the barrier that he's throwing up. The city attorney of Gainesville seemed to foreclose the possibility for similar reasons. So I just wanted to raise this because, one, I'm always interested in like strategic decisions, right? Like, what are the choice points that activists have to make, and how do we navigate within the constraints that are in front of us? And I think there's like really, like, I really want to commend, comrades in Gainesville for strategizing and directing intense creative energy towards identifying that path forward for Alachua County, and trying to do the same in the city of Gainesville. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye on how it evolves.
Yeah, cool. I have to run to the bathroom.
Yeah, no problem. And right. Okay, so now we're going to begin our descent into talking about the movie. Obviously, we don't just leave it at talking about the movie, but want to set the stage for this new series. So we're doing a 3-episode series on Italians depicting fascism. So the first, what we're talking about today, is Visconti's The Damned, which came out in 1969. Visconti is Italian. All the directors are Italian. In this instance, he is depicting Nazis. And a German industrialist family that is adjacent to the Nazis. The second movie that we'll cover is Bertolucci's 1970s film, The Conformist. Again, Bertolucci, Italian, and he is actually covering Italian fascists. We do see France a bit in that movie as well. And then the final film, we are going to cover Pier Paolo Pasolini's 1975 fucking heater, Solo.
I am excited to watch it again, but I'm also...
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch it again. And also squeamish.
Terrified.
Yeah. But so the intention of this series is to cover, basically 1970s Italian directors engaging with issues of fascism. So... in each episode, we will talk about some historical context for the period depicted within the film. We'll talk about what does the movie communicate about what fascism is, or stated another way, how does this movie define fascism? How is power patterned under fascism? And then we're going to look at disentangling themes of gender, sex, and sexuality with regards to fascism, because all 3 of these movies do that in spades. Throughout these 3 episodes, the discussion of these themes and motifs may be highly structured, or some of the elements may flow throughout a review of the film. And now we will leap into that historical context piece.
For The Damned.
The Damned.
Or as I've been calling it, if you guys can't see the stupid look I just got on my face when I know I was going to say this, The Damned, or as I've been calling it, Succession.
Oh, nice.
Is that anything?
Wow, that is definitely something. Great job.
I got a really dumb look on my face when I was going to say that.
Great job. I was like, oh no, where is this going?
Succession.
Yes, actually, great.
Thank you.
I feel like there's actually even more room there because the family's name is von Essenbeck.
Uh-huh.
So I feel...
Oh, yeah.
You know?
You had to play around with it a little bit, but I think we could probably come up with a good one.
So,
Success and back.
Oh, I think it works. I think it works.
HBO, listen up.
As we establish the historical context for The Damned, I'd like to hone in specifically on the status of homosexuality and queer people in Germany on the brink of World War II. This film entwines together the rise of fascism with sexual transgression, and we need a foundational understanding of where this is coming from to engage seriously. Some historians and queer theorists argue, pretty convincingly in my opinion, that the birth of modern homosexual identity across the West has its roots in 19th century Germany.
Open scientific inquiry and lack of censorship fostered research, and its uncensored publishing helped associate the sexual minority community with the Germans pre-World War II because that's where it was being publicly discussed. Homosexuality was named, defined, began to be understood as a coherent group, and ideas of innate, immutable, biological sexual identity began to circulate. At the same time, permissibility in the press and science did not mean homosexuality was uniformly accepted or held a socially or politically privileged status in the years leading up to World War II that we see fictionalized and turned into spectacle in The Damned. The duality, repression, punishment, and fear clashing with community, knowledge development, and exploration gave birth to some pretty funky social dynamics.
First of all, Germany inherited and enforced Prussia's legal restriction on homosexuality. Under paragraph 175, the portion of the German penal code that outlawed sodomy, accusing politicians of being homosexual publicly was a weapon wielded by both those trying to discredit their opponents and by homosexual activists and their scientist allies who were trying to get the law overturned. Outing was political because to be labeled as homosexual could bring about social, political, and legal ramifications. It could be an accusatory knife, or it could be a wedge leveraged to reveal a sliver of light that exposed the law's hypocrisy and cruelty. Now to the funkiness. That dialogical... No.
We're doing great. At least
Oh
you didn't do it. Fuck it up 3 times on the same word.
Yeah, at least I fucked up a different word that time. Okay. And now to the funkiness. That dialectical tension, the conflict and contradictions at the core of the Weimar Republic's cultural constitution of great identity, had another consequence. One of linking death and queerness, in particular, a sacrificial suicidality and homosexuality. While the connection between, or assumption of, homosexuality and suicide was initially based on the horrific consequences of legal restrictions like paragraph 175, or coerced heterosexuality, like being forced to marry a different gender person, or resulting opportunities for blackmail. All of these are themes embodied in and publicized in the work of Karl Heinrich Ulrich, a German lawyer and activist, and sexologist Richard von Krafft-Ebing and Magnus Hirschfeld at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. The association, that of suicide and homosexuality, over time took on a life of its own and emerged as a trope in artistic expressions of the time period, in which death was romanticized. In some ways, historians like Samuel Klaus Hoenke argue this develops antagonistically to that medicalized model. To tie death to homosexual love is an exercise of asserting will, of revitalizing masculinity within homosexuality, in contrast to the sanitized model dictated by probing doctors and sexologists. As we dig into The Damned, I think this background helps set the stage to interpret what we see on screen. To move past titillation and scandal, we have to contextualize. We have to understand what Visconti, the director, a gay Italian Marxist, is doing here beyond clocking his work as gay is evil.
So let's establish some baseline Nazi history as it pertains to queer repression. March 1933, almost immediately out of the gate, as a reminder, the Reichstag fire depicted in the opening of the film was in February 1933, Nazis launched the Campaign for a Clean Reich, shutting down a homosexual book press and a bunch of bars. In May of 1933, Nazis burned Hirschfeld's Sexology Institute. In 1935, Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, puts forth new strict anti-sodomy laws and then establishes the Reich Office to combat homosexuality and abortion. Sexual minorities face incarceration and state-administered murder. Ideological content of Nazi propaganda and discourse at the time classifies homosexuality as a disease infecting society with a viral quality. Notably, beyond attempting to justify genocide, we might note that this definition, being able to catch or transmit gayness, is at odds with that prior conception of homosexuality as an inborn identity.
And as we move through the film, I'd like for us to reflect on how Visconti is defining fascism, if not explicitly, at least implicitly through the film he crafts. What do you see, Craig?
Yeah, for sure. I always think of like one of the defining characteristics of fascism is like an obviously old world view that is an impossible standard to live up to, but you're going to make everyone live up to it, even though you don't live up to it yourself. But like you're going to push that on there, which is, I mean, at the very core of the movie.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Major themes that I see are a disruption of continuity and a manipulation of tradition, and the fracturing of familial bonds, which kind of tie into what you were talking about of this like fictive idea of the past being upheld. The thing I really want to speak to here is the idea of the death drive. That fascism is obsessed with death, and that infiltrates fascist aesthetics. And I'd like to dig into that a little because it's definitely relevant to this movie.
Holy shit, yeah.
And I think that it sets us up really well for the rest of the series too. So there's this great essay that Susan Sontag wrote called Fascinating Fascism that I think is pretty instructive here. In it, she is focused on castigating Leni Riefenstahl, the Nazi ingenue actress and filmmaker. Perhaps, listener, if you are not familiar with her in general, you might remember that she's brought up in Inglourious Bastards, if nowhere else. And in this essay, Susan Sontag is clocking that Riefenstahl is trying to run from her fascist history. The essay's from 1980. So it's like reflecting on what Riefenstahl had been doing in the 70s, basically. And says, like, you know, you're not going to run from your fascist history, but also locates some like common themes and qualities that were really marked of Nazi sentiment on film, including in the films that Riefenstahl either starred in or directed. Some of the things that she says are that Nazis displayed on film was an unlimited aspiration toward the high mystic goal, both beautiful and terrifying, as well as longing, purity, and death. She then goes on to say, this is a little bit of a long quote, but it really just like fucking gets it in there. So I wanna read the full thing, which she says, fascist aesthetics flow from and justify a preoccupation with situations of control, submissive behavior, extravagant effort, and the endurance of pain. They endorse two seemingly opposite states, egomania and servitude. Sidebar, again, we're hearing about the dialectic, right? Okay, back into the quote. The relations of domination and enslavement take the form of a characteristic pageantry, the massing of groups of people, the turning of people into things, the multiplication or replication of things, and the grouping of people, things around an all-powerful hypnotic leader figure or force. The fascist dramaturgy centers on the orgastic transactions between mighty forces and their puppets, uniformly garbed and shown in ever-swelling numbers. Its choreography alternates between ceaseless motion and a congealed, static, virile, I can read, posing. Fascist art glorifies surrender. It exalts mindlessness. It glamorizes death. I'd like us to keep this in mind because I would argue that Visconti inverts these aesthetics. He shows people glorifying surrender while not glorifying it. He shows people exalting mindlessness, while not exalting it. He shows people glamorizing death while not glamorizing it himself, which is precisely why this movie is so harrowing.
And the Nazi focus on death was not Sontag's innovation. It was a constant refrain of the post-war years as people grapple with the destruction they had wrought. Erich Fromm, a psychoanalyst who ran with the Frankfurt School crowd, and that Hal is going to talk about a lot more in our next episode, wrote a lot about the psychological causes and frameworks of fascism. He called Hitler a necrophile. In an article Fromm wrote, he said, while in the years of success, it may have appeared that he wanted only to destroy those whom he considered his enemies. The days of the Götterdämmerung at the end showed that his deepest satisfaction lay in witnessing total and absolute destruction, that of the German people, of those around him, and of himself. As we lead into the film, let's carry those words and take them to heart. In The Damned, we witness absolute destruction.
All right. Now, let's dig into the cast of characters in The Damned. I will say this, their relationships to each other are quite pliable and mobile throughout the film, and they're not always explicit. Like, I have seen this movie now 3 times, and I feel like every time I'm like, oh, that's who that person is.
Yeah.
You know. So then we'll reflect on general impressions. So let me do a brief overview of who everybody is, and then Craig will go into his feelings about this film, which I believe he saw for the first time for this episode. Okay, so first, kind of most essential person that we see, really a driving force of the film, even though he's not in the movie for very long, is Baron Goheim von Essenbeck, the aging patriarch who is murdered due to the reticence he displays towards working with Nazis.
It might also help if folks haven't seen it to say that the whole movie is basically predicated around this family of industrialists who are vying for what they see as the way forward once the Nazis have fully taken power or whatever.
Right,
so
which where the secession joke comes from, because it is essentially, how do we continue to make the money that we are making in the face of a new political situation? Is like
and all of these are like the players of the game, I guess.
Yes, of the game. So the Baron is who, you know, was running things up until basically the first scene of the movie. Yes, he's the Brian Cox in this secession metaphor. Then we have Frederick Bruckmann, who is an executive at the Steelworks, and he's the longtime partner and eventual husband of Sophie. He's played by Dick Bogart, who is a really great actor. And if you've never seen the movie Victim, all-time great early Hollywood film about homosexuality that I highly recommend. Then we have Sophie von Essenbeck, who is the girlfriend and then eventual wife of Frederick. She's the mother of Martin, Martin, and the daughter-in-law to the Baron. So she was the widow of the Baron's beloved son. So she married into the family.
Ostensibly was the one that the Baron would have liked to pass down the business to.
But he is dead, and so the question of succession after the Baron is murdered is an open one. Then we have Konstantin von Essenbeck, who is the Baron's nephew. He's also an executive at the steelworks that they own, and he's an officer in the SA, which is the wow, trying to pronounce German words.
Stromboli.
Yes, Stromboli. The important thing is that the SA was the original paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party, and most essentially for the movie, it's important to know that the SA were basically the ground troops for the Nazis' initial takeover.
Yeah, they're like the SS, but they weren't like at the point where they were hunting down.
They're not police.
Dissidents,
like if the SS are like essentially particularly incredibly evil cops, the SA were much more like a paramilitary, like a militia,
with a very specific purpose of normalizing and ushering in the Third Reich as a governing body, which we see kind of at the end. Once that happens, there's not a lot of need for the SA as it was anymore.
Right, and we'll definitely go into that more because there's a lot of stuff as it relates to the SA and homosexuality.
I think we should skip one. I think you skipped Martin. We mentioned him briefly.
Oh, and then there's Martin von Essenbeck, who is Sophie's son with the Baron's now passed son, and he is really I would say the like dominant character.
He is the
that we follow,
protagonist, as it were. I would say, not in the sense that he's a good guy for sure, but
right. Then we have Gunther von Essenbeck, who is Konstantin's son. He's a lover of the cello who kind of has a soft manner to him that we really see perverted by hate and ultimately convert to Nazism. Then we have Herbert Thalmann, who is married to the Baron's niece, Elizabeth. He's staunchly anti-Nazi. He is seemingly the heir apparent of the company because he definitely has been running things until the Baron decides that he wants to play ball with the Nazis and appoint his nephew, Constantine, who is much more sympathetic to the Nazis as he is a Nazi.
Yeah, he is in the SA. Yeah.
Yes, and he gets framed ultimately for the Baron's murder. And then we have Elizabeth Thalmann, the niece of the Baron and aforementioned wife of Herbert, played by
I don't know if I've ever
Charlotte
seen her
Rampling
in a younger years role.
Yeah, I mean, she's an amazing actress.
She's great.
She and Charlotte Rampling and Dick Bogart are in another film that is about sexual transgression and Nazis called The Night Porter.
Oh, I just bought that.
That is nutter butters.
I've never seen it, but I just bought it at a Goodwill bookstore, and I've got to watch it soon.
You bought that at Goodwill?
Yeah.
They definitely... What's on the cover? I'm shocked that Goodwill...
Yeah, it's the Criterion DVD, not the Blu-ray, but the DVD. But like the image that is on
I am
a lot
so
of them,
shocked
like the
that
lady in the leather holding with the hat.
Yeah, that's Charlotte Rampling also.
Is it? Yeah.
All right. So now that we've gone through the characters and also had a diversion about the Night Porter, what are your thoughts about this movie, Craig?
I love this movie. I say that all the time. I feel like, and makes me feel like a goofball because I do have the like recency bias where I'll make every movie my favorite movie if within the first 4 weeks of seeing it. But I do feel like this one's gonna stand that recency bias test because this shit is diabolical. I think, I love this shit. It was cool. Cool is relative. It was fucked up. Yeah. I almost made the mistake of getting my wife to watch this because I was like, I think you're cool. I think this is just like Succession, but like the Nazis, like family drama, and then it gets like progressively more and more like, like lump in your throat shit.
Like literally perverted. Like, actually filled with perversion and transgression.
Yeah, like, no reason to beat around the bush. Incest. Shit, yeah. Woo.
Yeah. Incest, pedophilia, queer people, morphine usage, suicide, like really all of it. Right?
And all just wrought by themselves on each other too, which is like, well, I think that's what I wanted to say is that you see that the obsession with death in this is death is so fucking transactional and like like casual in it, that like, well, first of all, like big deaths don't even happen on screen. Like when the Baron is murdered, that sets everything into motion. You just walk in to see his dead body. The also Charlotte Rampling's character dies. Does she die? Because I feel like, swear to God, I saw her later on, but they say she dies at Dachau.
No, yeah, she died at Dachau.
Okay,
the girls did.
The girls didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, death is just such a like it's just a tool. Like the movie really captures that like obsession with death, and more as like a tool for power and like gain and whatnot. Yeah.
Right, and it's like part of what Sontag and Fromm and other people who are like theorizing about the death drive and Nazis and fascism in general is the idea that like death defines life, and not in the sense that mortality is looming in the way that all of our lives are really defined by death in some abstracted way. And that's the whole kind of what undergirds the death like Freud's conception of the death drive in general, right? But that very specifically, like the use of death and threat of death is like the constant framing device for life under fascism.
Yeah, and like life under fascism is defined both by how you administer and escape death, almost like because they're all like players in the game too. Like any one of them could get fucked by the other one and die. But I was just thinking about that also. Like literally almost every major character death is off screen, except for the fucking Constantine.
Or the. Well, I mean, they die, but then
they die off screen.
Yeah, we see
at the end. Yeah.
Well, we see them take.
Do we see him take it, or do we see him? He puts them. He like brings them a meal or a drink, and he puts the little capsules in front of them, and then leaves, and then he comes back, and that shit was haunting. That like pancake makeup that she's wearing, and like dying with her eyes open with that makeup. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing I want to talk about before we get into the details. Is this is a fucking beautiful movie too, and like there's so much cool shit that I think it's doing, like just with the camera and stuff, like those hardcore like zoom push-ins, which are like so jarring, but they happen. I feel like they happen 3 or 4 times when it's usually like a character near the front half of the movie is like crossing a Rubicon that they won't be able to come back from. Like you see those hardcore push-ins when the Baron dies. You see it when he is right before the little girl hangs herself. Like those are just like so abrasive that I think they really work. And then just the way that like I think the movie gets more claustrophobic as it goes on. Like it starts like the party where there's like grand ballrooms and like big sweeping shots, and then like as the movie goes on, they get in like more and more cramped, dense places. Like
we're in grimy apartments.
Just the filmic language in it is really, really good.
Yeah, Visconti. I don't have this in the script, but kind of while we're talking about this, it just will provide a little bit of background on Visconti. Luchino Visconti. Most of his other works are period pieces. This is definitely considered his most extreme work. I would not say his other films. I mean, he made Death in Venice, based on the Thomas Mann novel, that also has some themes of like the consequences, the negative societal consequences of homosexuality for the people that are trying to navigate it. But in general, he made like very lush period pieces that were, if not like optimistic, certainly not this dark. And I think he's known for massive production design and being able to like leverage a lot of resources to make something really ornate and grand. And so I think part of what's so powerful about this movie is that it's doing that while examining fascism, which was there's not many movies like this that exist. Also, something that, and I think he'll probably talk about it when he joins us, but one of my best friends, Jared O'Connor, one of the things that he said when we were watching this was, like, it's giving Tennessee Williams.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I love Tennessee Williams. I said, yes, it is. So I looked it up, and Visconti is actually, because he was a play director, as a theater director as well, is the person who brought Tennessee Williams plays to Italy for the first time. So I think there is this very strong thread of like familial melodrama, that, you know, that's a really accurate, I think, way of getting to the core of it. And then the last thing I'll say about Visconti is, as I mentioned before, he is gay, and he was a leftist, but also was kind of a little gun shy about like sharing or disclosing those things. And I think that reticence is wrapped up in those dualities or contradictions that are reflected in the movie. But the reason why this movie just totally hits it for me is the combination of examining fascism through, like you mentioned, beautiful direction, and then combining it with the cinematography, which I think is like my favorite cinematography in any movie ever.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt. There are scenes in this movie where there are like 3 different colors of lighting in the same scene, in coming from different angles, and it doesn't create visual confusion. Like you're not looking at it like, where is that lighting source? Like, where is this coming from? It just fucking works.
Yeah.
And it's exquisite.
It's
like,
really good.
it is really wild what he does with lighting in this film.
The lighting, the like blue in the scene where Martin is like naked, crouched on the floor, and it like turns around
in like the attic.
Yeah. Is it the attic? I don't remember. He's doing like the Terminator pose when the Terminator goes through like that comes to the future, and he's like crouched down and stands up. That shit was beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, gorgeous. So you want to start to lead us through the actual plot?
Yeah, so the first like 30 minutes or so are the a birthday party for the Baron, the like patriarch of the family, the one that has the steel mill, and it's kind of like everyone playing nice because they're all trying to get in his good graces, but this is couched by the fact that the Nazis will take power very soon, and the Baron is not ruling it out entirely, but has said like he does not have an interest in working with the Nazis. But now that it looks like they're going to take power, he's having to consider that. And then he's kind of torn between 2 sides. One is Constantine, the like brute guy that is in the SA himself, who really wants to work with the Nazis. And then what was it? Herbert? Is that Herbert, who is like staunchly anti-Nazi, and then Friedrich, who is kind of wants to be make the respectable choices, which is another thing I like about this movie, is because something that always kind of makes me a little frustrated when people like talk about the Nazis and how they rose is that sentiment that like, how did everyone let this happen? Which is a dumb question, because we can see shit like this and we know why it happened is because like, well, I mean, all besides the Nazis themselves, but like the industrialists and the capitalists who had vested interest in working with the Nazis. It wasn't like I don't know. It's not that like, how do we let this happen is necessarily the sentiment, but that like, we don't see that like, yeah, they were propped up by like these pillars of society that are still pillars of society today. Like, fucking, there's no difference between this goddamn family and Elon Musk. Like, the same shit is like, do you know what I mean? Is that making sense? That like the idea that like, yeah, we know why this happened is because people like this were in positions of power, and clearly the moral choice was in front of them, and they went,
Well, and I think the really key thing about is we can see that there are multiple models presented to us in terms of how to handle the intrusion of Nazis.
And how to not fucking handle it, obviously. Yeah.
So, like, the Baron, what we see is that he is quite reticent to work with the Nazi. We get, it's very clear from the opening scene and conversations that they're having that he does not want to. He does not like them. Yeah. He doesn't like the way they do business. He thinks that they're bad for Germany. But then when push comes to shove, basically the events that we see or that we hear about, right, the political events off screen, is that he sees that there is essentially, from his perspective, I'm not saying there's actually no choice,
right, yeah.
but from his perspective, no choice. The Nazis, the Right to Strike Fire has given them the cover to actually fully assert power and fully take over. That if, from the Baron's perspective, if he does not now permit business, like doing business with them, then he is threatening the long-term health of the firm. And he says that is his motivation, is continuing the firm and ensuring that the firm can continue to do business.
Yeah.
So, and then we see, like you said, like you went through, then we've got Herbert, who's like, fuck this, absolutely not, top to bottom.
Herbert may be the only character who's like, I guess, ideologically consistent. Well, even then, he kind of goes fucking, when he comes back, he's a little, he never like, I don't know, he never crosses a line, I don't think, but he's the closest to like ideologically consistent in the movie.
This is wrong and we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then we have someone, obviously Constantine is a Nazi, so like we know what he wants to do. Yeah. And then I think Friedrich's character is super interesting here because he doesn't see, like, is not necessarily motivated to pursue working with the Nazis, but then their like extended family member who is an SS who is like prepping him for conversation in the car on the way there has made it clear that Friedrich can pursue personal power and is likely to be able to take over the firm if he's willing to make the decision to do so, because he does kind of represent, relative to Constantine, a middle, again, within the conception of the family, not my personal opinion, right? Represents a middle of the road in that he will work with the Nazis to facilitate the long-term health of their steelworks and their firm, which makes munitions, which is why the Nazis want, right, them to be within their control. But he's not like he's not ideologically driven, right? Yeah. In the way that like Constantine is.
Yeah, I do feel like Friedrich wants to appear to be like, he'll work with them. He just doesn't.
Yeah, especially initially. Especially initially, because he kind of has to be courted by, I forget his name.
Aschenbach.
Yes, like Aschenbach, who I think is like an extended cousin or something, and again is a member of the SS. Yeah. He really is like slimy massaging him.
That character is just a slime ball. Yeah, I just like, there's just no room for like morality in capitalism, and I think this is what that shows, because if the end goal of capitalism is to make $1, then it doesn't matter what anything else you possibly believe. If that gets in the way, then you're not a good capitalist. And I think that is what like this movie is pretty good at outlining, is that you can fucking have all the good intentions you want. At the end of the day, it's the dollar over morality. So what are you going to do?
And also, I
again,
think,
speaking for them, I know what I would do. Which
right. Is, well, and I think something that's so interesting about like fascism disrupting the disruption of continuity, right? And acting as if like only being interested in the past, but not being interested in the ways in which like the past is tied to the present and thus to the future, that's a thread, and they're trying to chop it up, is that the Baron's interest, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he is money motivated because those are his class interests, but he keeps talking about like legacy. Like he's concerned about, will the steelworks continue to exist and continue to be powerful so that there is like his family's legacy continues. And I think that's something that it's part of the contradiction between that and the disruption of continuity that Nazis offer, and that fascism offers as a whole, is part of why he dies, right? Is because the contradiction can't be resolved. They have to dispense of him, because once they are selling goods to the Nazis, the family legacy cannot be a competing interest against that of the Nazis, right? And that's part of what is so interesting to me about this early part of the movie, is that ostensibly we hear that Nazism is about family and the patriarch and the strong motherland, but like the patriarch has to die, to pursue their interests.
Again, the death is like a transactional thing. Let's talk about that first big show-stopping scene, which is the like drag performance that Martin gives, which is interrupted with the announcement that the Reichstag is on fire. What'd you make of that being the like thing that is happening when we learn of the Reichstag fires?
Yeah, I think that it is intended to set Martin up as a self-interested entity. I think that the queerness of it is, I don't mean incidental in that it doesn't matter, but that's why I wanted to talk about like this association with death with queerness. That's not like, I think our contemporary minds might see that and be like, the filmmaker is setting up queerness as bad or as evil, or as like associating it with someone who is like morally devoid of a basis. But I think it's like more diffuse than that. And it's intended to demonstrate that it's the end of joy. And that, like that the kind of like frivolousness of self-expression is being slaughtered at the altar of the fascism to come.
Because they don't go back to it. He's in the middle of his performance and they do not return.
Well, he switches one performance for another because at the end we see him in his Nazi suit acting very self-serious.
Yeah.
Right? So...
that guy is great.
The actor.
Helmut Berger. I know I didn't tell that right because I just said it like a fucking Simpsons character. Helmut Berger. But that is as close as my dumb brain can get to pronounce it. I bet it sounds... much more beautiful in a German.
I'm sure, yeah. I have not seen the other big Visconti film that he's in, but I really, really want to. It's called Ludwig.
Okay.
And it's about Ludwig II, King Ludwig II.
Okay.
I was the king of Bavaria, and he plays
Ludwig. Nice. Yeah, he is fucking menacing in this. Yeah, it's and that was kind of also what my take was, that the Reichstags are announced during it, is that I think they were kind of like announcing the movie as an exploration of queerness and the Third Reich and their inextricable kind of link and rise during that time. Is kind of how I just took it, as that was why they introduced it during his little performance, which also we didn't comment on that, but I love a weird performance.
Yes, stage on film, love it.
But like the fact that there's like 4 people, like it keeps doing these wide shots where it's just like 4 people looking at him, and he is way more interested in it than any of the rest of them are.
Well, and I think part of what's happening there is that it's also showing the evolution of like the private public spheres and how the upper class, how the bourgeoisie relate to those spaces. Because like in this older model, it's like out there we do our manufacturing, and in here we have our own little performances for ourselves. We're our own little insular world. And then it's like, no, that world is punctuated, and now you must be forced in your insular world to confront what's happening outside of it. But because they have a lot of money and power, their options are basically death or ascent. Like you can be really powerful or you can die.
Yeah.
And that private sphere is just increasingly infiltrated by what's happening outside of it.
Yeah, damn, that's so cool. Whew. Well, then we get kind of a cut to, we kind of covered a lot of what this sets up, but we see the Nazis touring the steel mill, which is kind of this is after the Baron is killed. They do it with Herbert's gun. But we learn that it's Friedrich that does it.
It's very, I mean, not to be trite by comparing it to Game of Thrones, but it's very Sean Bean, it's very Ned, where he's just like, yeah, you can have my gun. Like, he just walks right into it. He's like, very stupid and not at all strategic about it. At
all. And then he just, in not at all strategic and showing back up out of but so that kind of sets everything into motion with the family members who are left all jockeying for positions, and we see they give the Nazis a tour of the steel mill, where we start to kind of get more insight on the players, and basically it's that the SA is kind of at odds with the German army, and so Constantine has his own set of interests, which are different than Aschenbach, who's the guy who's with the SS I think, who has his own interests, because they're all kind of jockeying for power of who will be Hitler's goon squad once he fully takes power or whatever.
Right. 2 things I want to say about Aschenbach are this. One is that Cabaret is one of my favorite movies of all time, and the guy who plays Aschenbach is who plays the Baron Maximilian, who is the center of the love triangle in Cabaret. So he's being a wily, kind of feel a little bad for some of the German actors in the 70s, where it's you just were playing a Nazi. That's what you were.
How's your Nazi?
Yeah, if you're a hot blonde man who's German, you're just playing a creepy Nazi who's using sex to manipulate people. The other thing I'll say is that this is another reason that I think this movie is so not him not
the
him
Nazis.
specifically, not him being hot, but the scene of the jockeying between the SS and the SA and the German army,
Yeah.
and is that I think a lot of times, well, one, I've talked about on this podcast repeatedly about how conflict between elites presents opportunities for historical change and for like intervention of movements. Obviously we don't see that here, but I just think there's not so many movies that have those like really crystallized moments that demonstrate, like, from the outside, a really reduced view of history would be like, obviously the Nazis were all on the same page with each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not true. And it is very interesting to see how power operates and evolves through these like kind of micro conflicts where they're all theoretically pointed in the same direction, but who actually gets to be the executor of action and who gets to make decisions, and who gets to be closest to Hitler, are all like little internal conflicts that do lead to problems or again to death.
And I'm glad we did this so close to the death of Stalin, because I feel like
Yes!
there's a lot of like weird parallels, and like there is like some humor a little bit here and there. Not obviously not as much as death of Stalin, but like the like how do you fill the power voids and the vacuums that are created by all that?
I will say, not to get ahead of ourselves, I know you haven't watched it yet, but I do think there are actually a lot of parallels between the next movie and the death of Stalin.
Okay.
And including, it's less, I mean, it has funny elements, but it has some more like absurdist kind of submerged humor
Cool.
that I think like,
oh yeah.
I need to look it up, but it would really shock me if Iannucci didn't, like, if it wasn't one of his influences.
Yeah. Is it more fucked up than this one? I wonder if we're going in like degrees of fucked up in this.
It is less fucked up in explicit ways, in that, you know, there's not like pedophilia and stuff
going from this and then knowing what Sallow is, I'm like, oh Jesus, what's the conformist?
Yeah, the conformist is about a repressed gay man who becomes a fascist flunky and is confronted with a series of decisions, like basically, are you gonna conform and go with the fascists, or are you going to do the thing that you know is right? And it's very good. It is a little lighter. It's not light, but it's a little lighter.
Well,
and it's less fucked up, but I will say it has moments that I think are potentially more emotionally impactful because you're spending so much time honed in on one person. Whereas like when Martin makes some of these, or Martin, whatever, makes some of these shitty choices, it's like there is very little like, you're not inside of it with Martin, right? We're always on the outside watching Martin's evolution and going further and further down the trail. Whereas this, it's like, because you spend so much time with one person, there's a little bit more like emotional window into it. So some of the decisions that he makes, I think, are more emotionally impactful.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But compared to this movie and Solo, significantly less, just like, on its face,
like
fucked up. Yeah.
Pixar movie. Well, let's talk about Martin being a psycho and all the shit.
Yes.
We can kind of group it in because he's going to do some fucked up shit throughout this. But the first like foray that he is kind of a sadist psycho is that he has, for however long, we don't really know and to what extent, but been abusing this little girl who lives in the apartment complex with his near his girlfriend. And those scenes they're not explicit, but Jesus Christ, they are unsettling. Like just a light, like a touch, an arm movement that like communicates so, like, I thought that was really well done as far as, again, cinematic language, because they don't have to say shit. Like the first time he interacts with that girl, I was like, oh no,
it's bad.
And it's not explicit at all. But like just the
all of
way
it's the way it's shot, the cinematography, the
the first scene is almost
coloration
like
of the
in
lighting.
fucking Ghost, when like he just, like the pottery scene, like he literally just appears around her while she's like playing on the floor. And so we see we do see the behavior escalate a little bit, like he's like kissing, like letting her kiss all over his face and shit. And then we see that the little girl is sick, and
I think that it's very strongly suggesting that she has like an STD
Yeah,
that
I
is
thought so
killing
too,
her.
but I wasn't quite sure because
Yeah.
because it is very quick. They're like, she's sick, and you see her like in a flash, and then okay, that scene, does she like disappear? Okay, what goes on in that scene? I rewound it once. She like disappears and appears behind him. Am I dumb? But I swear to God, he goes down when he hears she's sick and he's talking to her. And then there's like a beat where he like almost zones out. And then she's behind him at the doorway walking up the stairs, presumably where she goes to hang herself. There's some weird shit, like some weird, interesting, like.
Yeah, maybe it's intended to be like it's spectral, like she's already died.
Maybe, yeah. But there is like a weird, in that moment, a weird.
Like kind of jump of
something
her
that's
in
like
space.
unnatural happening
Right.
there. But yeah, this little girl kills herself, and this movie being as fucked up as it is, that is kind of who cares, except that Constantine can now use this information that he's learned to reel in Martin.
Because
basically
the important piece here is that, again, Martin has ultimate decisions because he's the largest shareholder of
and
the
like,
Steelworks.
only one that's a direct descendant because he's a grandson, right?
Well, but those things, that is upstream. Because of
Okay.
that, he is the highest.
Right, okay,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
not
gotcha,
necessarily.
gotcha.
Once that was the case, it's not necessarily relevant anymore.
But
since
he is the
Baron
one
dead.
that has the most power, but is not like at the beginning of the movie is not in a position to exercise that power. So
Yeah,
it's
and
like
is
a bunch of
not
people-
administering, like not engaged in administration at all. But this is part of why I want to do that whole detour into talking about the way that homosexuality was both very present and also could be used as a weapon. Because again, none of these people, and I also, not that I have to say this to anyone who listens to this, but I'm not equating homosexuality and pedophilia, and certainly he is.
Yeah, and the movie is
yes.
not either. Like,
he is a variety, engaged in a variety of transgressions. But I mean this just in terms of the social dynamic that was present at that point of history, that the Nazis did not fucking care that he was abusing this young girl and that she seemingly contracted an illness from him, was very sick, and then completed suicide. What they care about is that other people possibly care about it, and thus it can be used as a tool to get him to do what they want. That's all they.
Yeah.
That's all. That
And if
they
there's
care
any
about.
judgment value at all leveled at him at any point, it's that one point that they say that the little girl is Jewish.
Yeah,
One of
God.
The, like, yeah, it's like one of the like, yeah, you fucking weirdo. Yeah. Yeah, that was so fucked up. But yeah, well, before,
And then,
go ahead.
And I'll say the final thing, and you have a note about this here, is that Constantine and the investigators that ultimately are going to do something with this information, the information that they ultimately are going to use is not even Liza dying or being molested by him. It's they make reference to him being seen. They don't use the word a gay club, but that is absolutely what they're alluding
He says
to.
those clubs. We saw him in those clubs.
Right.
Yeah.
We know what's going on there. So that's part of, I should have said, that's part of my whole point, is that like they're not even using the like actual harm that he was doing, right? Instead, they're relying upon this weird like dialectical double space that queerness exists in as the tool. And something that really sticks out to me about this movie, I was talking to with the people that I watched it with, is that there's something really funky here on a very, very basic level. Queerness is about otherness, right? Like it is about standing in opposition to straightness, standing in opposition to normative patterns of getting married, having kids, etc. Like on the most prime level. And I think something that very fascinating happening in The Damned is that like, what does it mean to be queer when there is not really any sense of normalcy as a referent point, right? Like Martin is being fucked up and incredibly bizarre. And they're able to leverage it because of some of these like latent and continuing social norms, but at the end of the day, inside his family, no one contests what he's doing or raises any challenges because they are themselves not normal. There is no continuity. There's a total fracturing and break from the past in terms of standards, expectations, and traditions. And so Martin is like, everyone's uncomfortable with him, but there is no like precise referent point to compare him against because there is no normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that goes why we always see, like, fucked up Republicans doing weird shit that, because they don't have a normal, any normalcy of what, I'm specifically talking about ones who are closeted and are actively working against, that we, like, have ridiculous scandals come out because they don't have a sense of normalcy. I'm thinking of Larry Craig. Like, if you're that much of a homophobe and you have no decent, like, reference point for what healthy, like, adult sexuality is, well, yeah, you're gonna be in a fucking Minnesota bathroom fucking tapping your feet in everybody's stalls and shit. But, like, yeah, sorry, I gotta have my name. Come on. Asshole. Hey, and it's not a last name either, Larry. It's a first name, Craig. God damn it.
That's the problem. And then at this point, we see that Elizabeth and their two kids are being held. Their kids being Elizabeth and Herbert's kids are being held captive in their home, and the family, being the von Essenbachs, won't let them leave. Elizabeth, I think she's like a very interesting character here because she seems to have no understanding of what's happening around her. Because we see her like try and make appeals to the family members, to some like government officials to be able to leave, and it's like, girly, if you had any understanding of what was going on here, you would not say jack shit to anyone. You would try and find an ally in a like clandestine way instead of like going to government officials and being like, here's my passport.
And they're
like,
so openly cold to her too, because like the conversation she has, I think it's Sophie, where like she essentially says something to the degree of like, well, we're almost done with you and then you'll be able to go on from here, or something like that, whereas basically like, well, your part in this, like, you, because essentially they have to keep her there while they're figuring out the shit with Herbert, because she is in the family and she does have some sway, but like they realize that the things that they're setting in motion, she's not going to be important for soon. Right.
Like once they dispense of Herbert and are assured that he cannot be a wrecker or like have throw up any blockades to what they're trying to do next, and they don't care at all about her. But it's also her insistence on trying to find these formal pathways for assistance again speaks to that total dismantling of like the normative that fascism engages in, because it's just like there is nowhere to turn, because these are not the rules, this is not the logic, these are not the vocabulary that anyone is using anymore. And then
we find out that that part was, you don't even see it, but when they say it, that when she leaves, like they're gonna let her go reunite with Herbert, and she leaves, and for a bit you think, okay, she left, I guess she's gonna try to be reunited with Herbert. They shipped her ass to a fucking concentration camp and she dies. Like, it is just bleak, brutal. God damn.
Which we learn like much later,
like
later,
at
the very
off
end
camera,
of the movie. It doesn't happen. None of that happens on camera.
Which makes it even more like, it just emphasizes how like little they care and how much just death and destruction is a tool and nothing more. But yeah, we want to move into where Constantine tries to make his move and immediately fucking fumbles the bag and gets his ass killed. So basically, Constantine is going to use this information that he has on Martin to take full control of Martin. He's going to like basically make Martin a figurehead of the company while he's pulling the strings. So they call this big meeting together of the family, and he is immediately pushing that we're going to start supplying the SA. And also, I feel like you'll probably be able to shed more light on this, but the repeating that Hegel quote of that a flower sometimes needs to be crushed because it's it obstructs our path. I don't know. Are you familiar with Hegel that much? Because I'm not, but I do like that as a quote and a metaphor they keep returning to.
Yeah, I don't know this quote in particular, but in light of his work, I would say that a lot of philosophy of this time, of Hegel's time, is trying to get to the root of like the balance between ethics and aesthetics. And so I think
that's definitely
is
what
part
makes
of what's
sense.
going on here.
But when Aschenbach delivers that line, I think the line itself, because he says it earlier, is that sometimes you must crush a flower if it stands in your way. And then when they're trying to like do this coup, he says the moment has come to crush our little flower because the flower obstructs our path. So we have what seems like it's going to be Constantine kind of becoming ascendant in the family, and being the one who is going to run everything. But at the same time, we have Sophie, who is trying to work with Aschenbach to basically make Friedrich the sole owner, because she knows that she can kind of manipulate Friedrich. So now we see like the two sides starting to really play, but it is at that point Constantine who has the upper hand, because he has this information about Martin, the like lead shareholder. I'm trying to see before we get to the what the fuck moment of this movie where I was like, holy shit. We see he says that Friedrich is like hesitant to the idea, and we see the scene where she like just comes in naked and is clearly like tempting him with everything she has to be like, see it Friedrich's way. And we see or not Friedrich's way, Aschenbach, and we see Friedrich like break down, and he says, I'll be trapped with him all my life. Oh my God, I've accepted a ruthless logic I can never get away from. I love that scene. I thought that was great. But yeah, do we want to get to the big NFP?
Yeah, the first time I watched this movie, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, I love how it's filmed, because you're like, from the moment they're like, oh, they're gonna fuck in this club. Like, it just the way that the camera is like because it goes for a while of just kind of moving through the party.
It fully settles. So, what should say?
NFP, Nazi fuck party.
Yeah, Nazi fuck party. We'll say this. It is Constantine, classic dude who does not, who has like a little bit of power, who doesn't, and makes a play for power, and does not understand that he's about to get fucking dunked on.
Yeah.
So the essay is having a retreat, and it's Bodvies,
yeah.
I think is what it's called, because it's like, it looks like bad wise.
Bad weasel.
But bad, Bodvies. Anyway, I don't know German. Anyway, the essay is like on a full retreat there. So all of the essay is in the same place. Again, I'm sorry to keep using Game of Thrones, but the Wed Reading.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right, is like about to happen, and it's like, oh, it's celebratory. He has no fucking idea whatsoever the shitstorm that is coming for him. And before we talk about the full scene in specific, there's like a little bit of additional historical context that I wanted to share, because I was not familiar with it before I watched this movie for the first time and looked into it. But this actually happened, in some form.
Yeah.
So. There, Ernstrom, who was the actual head of the essay, and we hear him referenced early on in these scenes before bad stuff starts happening by some of the members there. He was gay.
They reference him disparagingly, don't they?
I
it's
think
the two guys like taking a smoke break out. Oh
yeah,
no, they don't reference him. They reference Hitler.
Not
by way of him, like, oh, Hitler's gonna be with the fucking Rome or something like that.
Yes, yeah. So they talk about him. Rom is not there, though he is the top head of the essay. He is gay. Rom pursued a very masculinist homosexuality, and not incidentally. Like, he was very explicit and intentional, and talked about that was his approach. He's kind of similar to, I don't know if you, as someone who has dived into conservative fuckery of more recent eras, but like the Russian dudes that are like basically neo-Nazis and super gay. It's like he's basically doing the same thing. They're continuing his tradition. He explicitly juxtaposed his masculinist homosexuality against like kind of a more effeminate one. And that he viewed and like prioritized courage, discipline, and comradeship as like central to his sexuality. Like that these things were not divisible from each other. He was a member, but interestingly, he was a member of the BMR, which was one of the major German homophilic organizations, which is what people called organizations generally before like homosexuality became a super dominant term. In private letters, he would write about and express concern about that pattern of associating suicidality and queerness that I talked about earlier in the historical context section. And though he was handpicked by Hitler to return from Bolivia, run the SA to help ensure that the Nazis really took control like on the ground in Germany, his homosexuality was viewed as a liability and was repeatedly brought up in the press in kind of the 1931-1933 range until he was executed in 1934, and then the dismantling and mass murder of the SA that we see in the movie.
In the very next scene.
Yes. So the Nazi fuck party, that is on some level based in historical reality.
Yeah. And if we didn't make this explicit about what the Nazi fuck party was, it's essentially Constantine celebrating like his newfound rise, and they all go to this retreat, and they're like just drunken camaraderie that like over the course of like 5 minutes of the camera kind of like wandering through the party turns into a Nazi orgy that goes into the morning until the SS show up. Or is it the SS or is it the Army? I think it's the SS.
I think it's the SS because
Aschenbach
is there.
And so is Friedrich. They come in and just massacre all of the SA, and Friedrich is the one who kills Constantine, thus eliminating one more in the fight for power. And
so now that's two of the family members that he personally has murdered.
Killed. The one who wants to appear to be like, oh, well, I don't want to be
a fence walker.
Yeah, I don't.
Or fence sitter.
Milquetoast fence sitter, like Tim Pool.
A line walker, a fence sitter, etc.
But yeah, that scene is fucking crazy.
And I think one of the things that is most powerful about that scene to me is that it starts out as party, classic like frat party, basically,
literally,
right?
Wait, I think there's one woman at the beginning.
Yeah, well,
and they're like literally like slapping ass when she's running by, and then she's gone, and then
but she's not gone, which is my whole point.
Oh, she's not?
Immediately. So it's like classic frat party, dudes together, singing, camaraderie, having a good fucking time. And then as the night goes on and they get drunker, then there's like this turn where stuff starts to get darker because that woman who was like a waitress and was serving beer and stuff is like her clothes are being ripped off of her, and it's implied that she's being like sexually battered.
I guess I don't remember seeing her at the beginning. I just
remember at the very beginning where there are a few women in there who are dancing with them, like when it's really very early on, and then it like kind of descends into like the dark side of a frat party, and like this woman seemingly is being sexually battered, and then it just like totally drops off the edge, and then there's Nazi fuck party, and then they all die.
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. So with Constantine dead, Aschenbach is trying to pick up where he left off with the blackmail on Martin, and is at this point trying to turn Martin against Sophie, his mom, and Friedrich, his stepfather, essentially. They're not married until the end. But we get a great scene, the dinner table scene, where Friedrich is finally going to be like, all right, motherfuckers, it's Friedrich time, baby. And he's going to lay out how he's, kind of the first time in the movie, like, no nonsense, you motherfuckers listen to me, this is how we're going to do it. And then we see Gunther, who becomes really, really interesting, because Gunther, excuse me, the Ringgeneral? Do you know are you okay? I didn't know if you followed it enough, because I think the Ring General is a newer nickname for him in the WWE.
Yeah.
But I think there must be a game amongst the WWE to see who can say that nickname the weirdest. Because at one point, I think
to be clear, listener, there is a WWE wrestler named Gunther,
whose nickname is the Ring General, but he's like, his character is, he's German, essentially. So whenever they say Ring General, at this point, like, Gunther says like the Ling-Hen-How now. Like, they're saying it the weirdest way.
Jesus Christ.
But Gunther in the movie is one of the more interesting characters to me, because he is like the sensitive one, the one that kind of doesn't really have an interest one way or the other at the beginning, but he is motivated by hatred that Aschenbach seizes on, and basically uses that hatred to turn him against Friedrich and Sophie. Yeah, how'd you like the dinner table sequence? Because I like that a lot.
I always appreciate when we've got scenes that mirror each other. So one of the things that Frederick does in this scene when he is unable to like gain control and assert control in the way that he wants is that he bangs on the table in the same way that the Baron does in the opening scene of the movie at the dinner table. But the Baron is able to command everyone, and everyone defers to his authority when he does it. Whereas with Frederick, everyone just ignores him, and like chaos breaks out and people are fighting, and there's like incest almost at the table, you know.
Where they like almost kiss at the table, and they're like, "What the fuck?" To be clear, the ones who almost kiss are Sophie and Martin, who are
her
mother
son.
and son. And if only it went that far. So yeah, we see that like Friedrich has his time where he's gonna be like boss bitch, except he clearly is not cut out for this. The like while the dinner is happening, there's like plays being made, clearly gonna line against him. So at this point, it's like Friedrich and Sophie versus Aschenbach and Martin, using Gunther in there. And Aschenbach has that great line to Gunther. He says, "You possess hate. It's a young hate, pure, absolute. But be careful. This potential of energy and fury is too important to use it in a paltry, private vendetta. It would be a luxury, a useless waste. Come with me, Gunther. We will teach you to invest your wealth in a better way." Which I love that, like, by the end of that, he's not even talking about his hatred anymore. He's like, give me your money and your time. That's what I need from you. Just not even hiding it at that point. But yeah, do we want to get to kind of the big fucking finale here?
Dun dun.
Ooh. Well, Martin has fully taken a turn where he, like Hal was saying earlier, the kind of role switch from the performance that he does at the beginning. Now he's almost fully like become the Nazi that he will become, and tells his mother, "I will destroy you, mother." And we see him sexually assault. Well, I guess we don't see it. It cuts, but we see him sexually assault his own mother, which turns her into like a kind of weird, like regresses her into kind of an infant-like state where she's not speaking really.
Yeah, she's like catatonic.
Yeah, but she is moving and responding. Well, that was my one question.
She's also drugged.
Yes, drugged. But we also see her with two like really like crude drawings. Were we to think that she drew those, or those were drawings that Martin did when he was younger that she was like...
That one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but I wanted to be sure.
Yeah, and I think this is another one of those places where, again, like kind of the psychoanalysis that is circulating in the like 60s, especially like German psychoanalysis that is done in the wake of fascism, is focused so much on these like disruptions of normative patterns, because like, you know, it's not a fucking coincidence that he's killing his mother, you know, assaulting and killing his own mother. And that we see from the drawing that those impulses and motivations were present when he was a child.
Because one of the drawings is like fairly
of him
normal,
like stabbing her,
and then the second one is like the same drawing except that she's got like knives and shit all sticking out of her. So then we get to the wedding, and the wedding is terrifying. We basically they're making Sophie and Friedrich marry to make everything kind of look above board, essentially. Is that kind of what they're doing? Like they're trying to make the like transition of power in the family, like it's clearly fucked up, but they're trying to make it look as not fucked up as possible. So like by having them marry and then they know they're gonna die immediately.
Yeah, and he has to take the von Essenbeck name,
right?
For that to be possible too. So there's all these like formal processes that they're engaged in, and the spirit has just been totally sucked out of all of them. It's just like rote zombie-like participation.
And her makeup is fucking... She's like that pancake white makeup that she's wearing, and then he is like in his like suit or whatever, but just an expression of dread the entire time that they're like doing the vows. Oh, and their vows are fucking like what were they like? Do you promise something about like uphold the German state or something like that in their wedding vows?
It's just a stand-in, right? For institutional relationships. I will say something that, and I will talk about what I think this means more next episode. But The Conformist ends with the main woman character also essentially in whiteface in a very similar manner. Yeah, just incidental, not intentional or something. I was thinking about when I wanted to pair them together, but
and we want to get to the final. We have already alluded to it, but
I'll just before that, and it kind of is the transition piece. Martin is fully in Nazi garb.
Yes, at this point.
And we see him, I mean, he's always at remove or at a distance from everyone else, but we do see him like interacting with adult women, right? Mm-hmm. Like he is trying to mimic some level of
normal human Nazi man.
Yeah. Of what's expected of him. And the shots in this, like the ballroom in the house where there are Nazi banners hung everywhere, and there's people like kind of languishing on chairs, and there's like two people dancing in the distance, just has this really haunted, like the bare bones skeletons left of this empire, this family's empire,
juxtaposed with the beginning where we had those like wide angle shots of the very like luxurious rooms and all that, and now it's all the same rooms but just with swastikas everywhere.
Right. God.
And we see Martin walks into the room of the newlyweds, his mother and Friedrich, and gives them each a poison capsule.
Okay.
And then leaves and returns a bit later to find them both dead on the couch, and Sophie with that goddamn haunting like eyes open, mouth open with the white makeup face.
Very pale face, just like a walking ghost, right? The things that make her human have been totally obliterated.
And she's an interesting one too, because she's the one that is kind of the strongest at one point, like maybe one of the like more sadistic of them, like how she treats whatever her name was, the Charlotte Rampling, Elizabeth.
Yes,
and
like
then
she is
to be reduced to a walking ghost by the end.
And again, it's eventually the bill has to be paid.
Yeah.
Right? Like the cruelty cannot continue.
Yeah.
Because eventually it gets pointed back at you.
Yeah. And and only the cruelest will prevail, essentially. Like it's a exercise in cruelty, and that's when we see like I think it might be even the closing shot of him doing the Nazi salute amongst the party.
Yes.
Actually, the closing shot is another shot of the smelting furnace at the factory, which I thought was cool. Was the opening and closing shots where all the furnaces at the Essenbeck whatever plant, the steel plant. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the production continues.
Hell yeah.
Right.
It must. Fuck. This movie was good. I like this a lot. Do we have anything that we want to add to The Damned, aka Succession? Oh, I fucked that one up. Successenbeck.
Succession Beck.
I'm a loser, baby. Succession Becky. That was too stupid.
No, I loved it. I'm delighted by it. No, I think I'll just say our next episode is on, as mentioned before, Bertolucci's 1970s film The Conformist, about a repressed gay man who becomes a fascist flunky. And there are other angles that will probably emerge as I write, but right now I think a lot of I'm going to focus on is drawing more on Eric Fromm, that we talked about very briefly at the beginning of this. Wrote a great book called Escape from Freedom that is about kind of the psychoanalytic underpinnings of people who turn to authoritarianism.
Well, I am looking forward to watching The Conformist, which, again, will be our next episode 42. But until then, we'll catch catch you on the next one. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Kill the boy. Kill the boy. Kill the boy. Kill